everybody today to our session, which is Supercharging Online Activity. We're going to be here for about an hour and a half. We're hoping to finish up about 2, by which time I'm sure everyone will be ready for lunch, if you haven't had yours already. I can see a few cups of tea, very sensible. I've got mine just here as well. Those of you who just joined in the last few seconds, I'll just do a quick intro again. I'm Katie. I'm a community network developer based in Scotland. I'll be one of your hosts today with Mo, who's also in Edinburgh, and Neve, who's in Northern Ireland, who will be our chat person and tech person. So just a couple of wee housekeeping bits before we get started. Be great if people could mute themselves. So I think there's a couple of people, most people are quite used to this now. It doesn't mean we don't want to hear your voice at some point, because we definitely do. It just means that some of the background noise from wherever you are at the moment doesn't get heard. And hence why I'm using a little mic and an earphone as well, because I'm not going to be on mute as much, but hopefully this will stop any background noise from here as well. But any problems at all with any of the tech, or any questions you have, or if you want to share who you are and where you're from, pop that in the chat box. I really like to see everyone introducing themselves there. And most of all, just relax and enjoy the session. It's all about you. We certainly don't put ourselves forward as experts on any of the topics. This is a space for you to share what you know. So some of the things you learned today might be new to you. I suspect that a lot of it won't be a big surprise to you at all. But just a thought that we'd like to make sure that even if it's a little extra boost to your motivation for running your online sessions, that will be a great start for us. So I am just going to share my screen very briefly with you. So this is us today, taking our next steps to growing confidence and engagement online. So I thought we'd share an agenda, but it's a slightly different agenda, this one. So this is more about what I hope we'll be doing today. I can see snacking is right in the middle of there. Snacking is really important to me. This goes through lunch session. If you need to snack, just go ahead, no problem. But we're going to be thinking a lot. We're going to be doing a bit of reflecting. We're going to be sharing our knowledge, sharing our stories. We're going to do a bit of designing. That's Mo's area of expertise, so she'll be talking to you a bit about that. Hopefully lots of interaction and a bit of inspiration as well. That's the plan. I won't give you a blow-by-blow, minute-by-minute account, because sometimes these things just have to go with the flow. But the first thing I would like to do to get us interacting a wee bit is for Neve to share a poll with you. So I don't know how confident people are with using Zoom. If you can give me a sort of a 1 to 5, I mean, I'm probably getting up to a sort of 3.5 to 4 now. So if anyone's feeling like a 1, 2, how confident out of 5 would you say you are on Zoom? We've got a 2, we've got some 4s, we've got some 3s, we've got maybe a 4.5 down there as well. That's brilliant. So we've got a couple of questions and on the poll. Neve's going to share those. You can choose as many answers as you like, and this is not in the least scientific. Let me just get that disclaimer out the way. This is just for fun. So let's have a look. If you're happy to get those up. There we go. So here's our first one. How do you feel about taking part in online activity these days? So you can select as many of those as you like. You can be as honest as you like because it's anonymous. And as I said, highly scientific. I'm quite relieved our researcher isn't on this call. She'd be horrified. So select as many as you can. Neve, are you seeing that anyone's able to reply to that?
Is everybody, is the poll live now?
Yep.
Yeah, and is everybody able to?
There we go.
Okay, yeah, some people have voted now.
I start to see some people.
Yeah.
It's maybe just a wee bit slow to update at our end. So we've just got a couple of people who have taken part. Let's wait and see if we can get that up a bit more. So we've got, yeah, that's it. That's looking good.
It's very interactive.
Yes, it is. This is really positive. I think we're up to, what's that, about 20 odd people's results are showing up there. So I think we can probably leave that a second, and then, oh, a few more. And then, Neve, if you're ready to share the results, that would be great. Let's have a quick look, see what people felt. Here we go. So there's a fairly even spread, actually. I like the idea it can be a bit hit and miss, but reassuring that people think it's a great way to connect. We're still feeling relatively positive about connecting online, which is fantastic to hear. Let's have a quick scroll down. Give me a thumbs up if you can actually see the results. I'm just making sure that everyone can see the screen. Fantastic. It's good fun. I'm getting better at it. That's brilliant. I'm really glad to hear that. Would rather not do it yet. We all feel like that sometimes, sometimes more often than others. And that's interesting. A lot of us find face-to-face events a lot easier. So that's really great. Thank you very much for sharing that. That's brilliant. So
Okay.
Thanks, Neve.
Yep. Is that it now?
It is. That's the polls. So I'm just going to go back to sharing my screen again and down to the next slide. So let's talk a little bit about why we're here today. So when I chose the title for this event, I chose the word supercharging, supercharge. And one of the definitions of that is to bring an extra energy or power to what you're doing. And I just really like that, because I think that's where we are at the moment. We've been doing a lot of online activity, and I say we as all of us, not just us as a team at Eden Project Communities, but across the whole of the world, really. And we've been doing it for a few months, and we've been missing our face-to-face events and really engaging with people. But this is probably going to be with us for a bit longer. We're going to have to keep still connecting and engaging digitally. How do we keep this energy going? How do we bring some energy back if we're starting to lose that energy? And that's really what Mo and I would like to talk to you about today. We've got some ideas, but we also want to hear from you. That's really important. So in a minute, we're going to go into some breakout rooms where I would just like you to talk a little bit about why you're here today and what you're hoping to get from it, but also just to share a really positive experience you've had engaging digitally. So any type of digital experience, not necessarily through Zoom, but any way you've connected with people digitally. So we'll do that in a second. So that's just a little heads up for Neve. We're going to go into groups of 3 to 4 people for about 10 minutes.
They're ready now.
Fantastic. Give me one more second. So we'll do that in a minute. Really today is just about keeping everything fresh, motivating all of ourselves if we're hosting events, but also keeping it so we can keep our participants energized and engaged with what we do. We'd really like to leave today feeling more confident, definitely more motivated, and really inspired and ready to inject some new energy into your online sessions. So I'll just recap what we're going to do in the breakout rooms. Neve will bring those up in a second. There'll be 3 or 4 people in each room, hopefully. Introduce yourselves, say hello, and then share your reasons for being here today, why you felt you wanted to come along. And also if you can think of 1 or 2 positive experiences you've had connecting with people online, share those as well. As I said, 10 minutes, and you'll get a minute's warning to come back to this room. And then when you come back, we'll ask a couple of people to share their experiences.
I just need to add a few people to rooms who have just joined. So 1 wee second.
Fantastic. Thanks, Neve. So what I'll do when you're in the rooms as well, I'll send a little message which will come up along the top of your screen reminding you what you're going to be talking about and how long you're in there. So I'm going to stop sharing that, and any second now we'll get the request to go into your rooms, and we'll see you back here in 10 minutes.
Okay.
That were brilliant.
There you go. Welcome back, folk. We get a few people. It'll take about a minute for everyone to come back into this room, I think. So I'll just chat away until everyone's here. That's great. So that's about half the people back, I think. give it another, and probably another half a minute for those people just whose rooms are just closing. Hope everyone has some good chats. It makes it a little bit more real when you actually get to speak to other people in a small group like that, doesn't it? Personally, that's always my favourite bit. And when I'm hosting, I feel I'm missing out on that a bit.
I love it when people come back mid-sentence.
Yeah. Or that last minute panic, all the things you want to say and the timer's counting down. That's great. Look, it's lovely to see everyone popping back into the room like that as well. So that's great. We've now got over 35 participants, which is fantastic. Welcome back, everyone. Hope you had a good chat in your rooms about who you are, where you're from, what you enjoy about digital connections, and why you're here today. Here, I'm just going to share quickly some of the thoughts that I had around that. Just share that. And why I hope people are here is I really hope some of you came up and said you want to feel more confident, be inspired to inspire others, find ways to avoid digital fatigue, and that's for us as hosts and for the people that take part. I mean, that is a major issue at the moment as we're coming on to connect digitally, and it can feel quite monotonous sometimes. Keep your message fresh and engaging. Let's learn how to keep sharing that message in a positive and engaging way, and showcasing your ideas and projects. We still want to keep doing that now, even if our community groups that we're working with aren't meeting in the same way that they usually do. So that's from me. I'd love to hear a little bit from you as well. I can see everyone, I've got everyone on 2 screens, so it's a bit hard to see if everyone puts their hand up. So if anyone would like to share from their group, if you could just type yes or me in the chat, I can give you a shout out and I'll come to you. So I'm hoping that someone might like to volunteer to feedback from their group. Literally, we have another about 3 or 4 minutes. So I'm looking for about a 30-second to 40-second feedback. Sorry, Mo?
Just to let everyone know, I'm going to use a function of Zoom here just to capture what you're going to say. I think it's Susie. So when you're hosting a Zoom call, you could get feedback, whiteboard, which is very helpful. So if you speak, I will try and keep up and type as fast as I can.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mo. So go over to Susie to hear from your group.
Hello. I had Cara and Curry in my group. So we were just sharing some of the issues that we found initially about using the technology, around being scared of the digital side of things, and the fact that we'd actually, in our day jobs, prefer to be outside and doing face-to-face work. I know that Cara is setting up an environmental education business, and Carrie's been dealing with the therapeutic side of a garden. I've been using it for an art club, to run an art club online. But we were all saying that we did actually find it positive once we'd got over our own fears. Sorry, I'm probably talking too fast.
Oh, no, don't worry, you're fine.
To have it. I know certainly with the art club, we found a lot of our elderly members have been shielding. So they've actually been able to really enjoy having a meet up twice a week online once we got over the technological issues. It's harder to do for Kerry because you can't be in a garden when you're online, but she said that she'd had some positive experiences. I'd had Cara trying to get the kids involved and the teachers involved and things like that. So we're really looking forward to finding out what we can learn from you to keep the inspiration levels high.
That's brilliant. Thanks very much, Susie. Is there anyone else who'd like to feedback? Literally 30 seconds of your top #1 reason for being here. Joe, that would be lovely. Thank you.
I can find my mute.
Thanks, Joe.
No, it's very simply, there was one of us from Wales, one of us from Scotland, and Janet, I can't remember where, Northumberland usually. Basically, we don't usually have access to such fine workshops. Over this time, I've been able to do workshops where usually I wouldn't be able to afford to go all the way down to Cornwall or up to Scotland, over to London. But because of the online thing, we've been able to access stuff that we wouldn't be usually able to access. For me, it's been brilliant. I've been doing courses with brilliant people all over the country.
That's great. That's great feedback. Thanks, Jo. And I'm sure that lots of us will be able to resonate with all of these different reasons as well. I think we have got our one last one, I think, from Sarah. If that's okay, just squeeze you in, that would be brilliant. Sarah Bello.
I've unmuted myself.
Well done.
That's the first problem. The first challenge is actually working the tech. And I work with quite a lot of older people, and I found that that they're really quite reluctant to join in and aren't very confident. Normally we support community car schemes from across Cambridgeshire, and you know, have face-to-face, but actually the online ones have been a bit tricky. But what I love is the fact that we can meet up from people all over the country and find out what everybody's doing. And as has been said before, we don't connect as much as we have been doing over the last few months. It's a real treat. It's great.
That's a lovely note to finish on, Sarah. Thank you. That's really great. So we're talking a little about some of the challenges in here as well, the tech, but also some really positive reasons why we want to continue using digital beyond lockdown, beyond COVID, and perhaps start to blend it in with some of the offline work we're going to do further down the line. Which brings me really neatly into a handover to my colleague Mo, who's on that side of me, maybe not for everyone. Mo's going to talk a little bit now about how you design your event or your session with your community group, what platform you're going to use, and how you think about how you present yourself as well and connect with people through that way. So I'm going to hand over to Mo.
Thank you, Katie. And don't worry, I will share the whiteboard notes with everybody when we follow on from the call. It's so lovely to see so many people, and I would echo that feeling that it's really a treat to be able to meet people. And one of my favorite things about this job is that I get to meet people. So I've got a little presentation and we're going to go through. So a little bit of context. Katie and I job share up in Scotland, and it's really, when you're kind of looking at things like that, it's always nice to find the spark in you. So the thing that you love the most, something that's going to keep you in your community, like what's your community's thing? But that can be quite tricky, as people have brought up. There are barriers to designing online activity. There's sometimes you think, like with a garden, like how do we do this? And I've put together some very simple steps. Again, I will share these, but if you have a piece of paper and a pen ready, it might be useful to have that there just to note down the process of kind of designing something. And then we're going to go into breakout rooms once I've shared this presentation, just with a bit of a prompt, and then this is your chance to kind of bounce ideas off of each other. So I will try not to ramble. I love a chat, me, so you may notice that I love to talk on, so I'll try and make it as clear as possible. So can everybody see the screen? Katie, could you give me a thumbs up? Thank you very much. Okay, fantastic. So if you can see people in your view, you can hide thumbnail if you hover over the view of people, if it's in the way of the text, or if you click and drag, you can move people around. So this is the end of the presentation. There we go. So designing your online activity. The first thing I do, so I didn't give the context, a little bit of context is I'm an artist and a designer. And so some of my time I'm designing community activities, and some of my time I'm working in community arts organizations. So I apply this method to everything that I do. And the first thing you have to think of is the identifying what you want out of your activity. So that's the why question. And I've put some ideas there of what your main aim and outcome might be. Now, it might be that you just simply want to get people, like we are right now, to connect, to chat, to have a space to come together. It might be that you want to impart some learning. We're doing a bit of that again today, but it might be more learning heavy than connection heavy. And if you start with your piece of paper with the big why, and then some ideas about your particular what you would like out of your online activity. Are you looking to recruit new people? And that's a bit of promotion as well. Maybe you want to get the message out there. Maybe you want to gather research from people. Maybe you need to do a survey. Maybe you need to find out what people think about what you're doing. And maybe you have a project that's running, so you have a bit of project management, a project development to do, and you need people to kind of come and really dig in and interact with you. So I think quite often I think of online activities, what we're doing here, but actually if you're a small organization or a volunteer group, quite often you'll need to be making decisions, you'll need to be having meetings, and that would look very different from an online activity that's maybe more based around promoting your project. So once you've kind of got the why down, you've got the who are you aiming it at. Now I need to move all your lovely faces. You're slightly in the way of my text. So you need to pinpoint your target audience. So you've got the what do you want out of it, like why are you doing it? And then you've got the who are you bringing along on your online activity. So I've put everyone there because I think when we start, we usually start from a starting point of, well, we don't want to exclude anyone. Who? Everyone. It's everybody, right? But you can usually, and there's lots of different ways that you might like, you know, slice up your audience or think about the different people that you want to attract. But it might be a really good idea just to have a little think, is it, you know, an internal meeting? Is it an external meeting? Are you inviting people who already know who you are, who you've maybe met before? Or like today when we were saying everybody, do we mean everyone within our team? No, we mean everybody, and they're going to be people that we haven't met. And once you can kind of get the who is it that you're speaking to, a lot of the other questions kind of come into place. So I've put things like disengaged or unaware versus engaged and aware, because that might mean that along with a promotion thing that leads you towards another kind of activity. And these, I mean, for some people this may feel like super simple, but once you've got these building blocks in place, you can actually apply this to everything basically. So the why and the who together, that tells you what your session will be and how your people will interact with it. It will tell you the information you need to make it specific and make it relevant, make it accessible. So once you've got those first two things, you can then start to think about, well, how do we speak to those people and get them thinking about the whys. So when you're thinking, I think I'll use today's session as a good example. So we were hearing from people that they were maybe needing to, you know, as Katie said, supercharge their online activity. So we had the who are people who are wanting to be engaged in the community, or maybe community activists, community action people. So we had the who, we had our network, and then we had the why, we had the what are we doing? We wanted people to feel more charged. So we knew we would need some interaction. It couldn't be very low key or just very passive. We knew that people were going to need to learn, and we knew they were going to need to learn from each other. So we have a few, you know, how-tos in there. So the more of these things you can kind of, you know, identify, the easier it will be. And you'll see as well, if you look online, there's all these different types of things. And we've had some brilliant project tours. In fact, next Wednesday, we're going to have some project tours. And that's maybe quite passive, but it's bridging that maybe online and offline. You've got interviews, maybe someone's giving a talk, quiz, games, workshops. Again, once you refer back to what you want out of it and who you're speaking to, that will tell you a lot about what's going to be appropriate in terms of how you meet those. And then the how, looking for an appropriate platform. So we're on Zoom right now, and I think it feels like everyone in the world is quite comfortable with Zoom. Zoom has become a word that I don't think I said very often, other than maybe playing games before this pandemic. And now I feel like I say Zoom every day, but it isn't the only platform, and it's not always the most appropriate. So we're talking about older people maybe feeling a little bit more nervous or less confident. Zoom, once you get used to it, sure, but we're still a bit iffy on the tech sometimes, and it can be very daunting. So maybe if you want to, you know, baby steps in or make things more gentle, you might look at things like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Google Meet. Now, Google Meet, if you all have Google accounts, it's like Skype, and it's very good for small meetings of people. So whereas here, we have a lot of people we don't know, and we're just meeting you for the first time, Google Meet's really great if you're meeting up to about 5 people, 6 people in a meeting. But also I'd say that the bad thing, the downside of Zoom, YouTube, Google Meet, Facebook, Twitch, Instagram. So Twitch is like really good for sharing your screen, and a lot of artists and video gamers use it. If you're doing any research, I'd point you towards that. But your website, don't forget you can host things on your own website. Don't forget that this is a great opportunity to bring people, excuse me, sorry, toward the information that you host in terms of the website that you may have built. You may not have a website, you may only have a Facebook, but that's really great. And these different platforms, so Instagram, you can do videos and share, but you can also go live, and we'll be talking about that. Facebook, you can go live. So there's all these different kinds of things, but the how you share it, that should be the last thing you look at. You shouldn't be trying to adjust your community activity to the platform. You should be thinking about the people and the message first, and then saying, well, what's going to be great for those people and what's going to be great for that message, and that's the what are you actually doing. And so you've got all the range of your experience at your disposal there, and you're going to talk about this just now. But definitely it can feel very tech heavy, and if the tech is the problem, put that to be the last thing that you think about. So I'm going to share these with you, but those questions are, I've put some examples in there, but some of you might run sports projects, some of you might run community gardens, some of you might be artists, museums, youth groups. I couldn't put in all the ideas for everything that I've got to keep it quite blank so you can input your amazing experience and ideas in, and now you get a chance to share. And that's the most, I think, my favorite thing of doing this is hearing from you all. So what's next? Another thing that Katie mentioned, right, if you might remember right at the beginning of this call, she was talking about what we want you to think, what we want you to feel, and what we want you to do when you've had this call with us. So we're practicing this right now. We want you to think about supercharging your online activity and all the different things that might do. We want you to feel more confident, and we want you to go out there and do more. So the think, feel, do is a very useful phrase for if you think about looking at the motivational mechanisms that are going on behind. And then what I'd like you to do now, so I'm going to type this in the box. I know it's been a lot of talking, and it is a little odd just talking about your computer, I'm going to get you back into breakout rooms. It's going to be quite short, so you'll go into the breakout rooms, or you should go into the breakout rooms that you're in before, so you should know people. I'd like you to reflect a little on what I've talked about in terms of the think, feel, do, the different platforms. Does anyone have some good experience to share? Maybe focusing on if someone has a particular audience they have a problem or have a concern around, and just let the conversation flow. But then that last thing there, can you add in an offline bridge for your online work? And what that means is, what can you do in the real world now that lockdown is eased a little bit that bridges the people looking at the screen? So that project tour is a really great example of that. How can you have something happening in the real world? It could be that you all do the same activity at the same time. We had a cheers for carers on Big Lunch, and that's where everyone had a cup of tea and we cheersed. That was an offline thing we all did together that really only worked because we were together online. So thinking about what can happen in the real world that can really supercharge your online activity. Okay, I'm going to stop rambling now. I'm going to stop chatting. Neve, could you pop everyone into breakout rooms for 7 minutes, please? And I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I hope that was all clear for everybody. And we will see you guys when you come back from your breakout rooms. Enjoy. I think we're almost all here. Are we, Neve? Yeah, we're still maybe welcoming some people back in. Great. So I appreciate that 7 minutes isn't really long enough for you to do very much. And I know we really try and cram these sessions full of things. So I hope you all had a chance to reflect and ask each other some questions and just connect in over those themes. We're going to do the same thing that we did before. Katie is going to share a whiteboard. And if you could just pop in the chat, if you had something that you wanted to share or that someone else shared in your group. Now I can't see the chat. Oh, there it is. So I would really encourage you to share. Harriet Johnson, you got in there first. Please take the floor.
Hi everyone, so I am running a project that's about working with leaders in the community and cultural sector, so it's leadership development, and it was designed to be face to face and for people to build connections. So I was just talking to the group about how do you foster trust between people and build those connections that you'd normally form over a couple of days in a training session, you know, where you're having lunch together and coffee. How do you, that's my big like $1 million question. How do you create that feeling with, especially with professionals, to feel connected so that they'll pick the phone up and know that they're going to get that help, or they know that person well enough to communicate with. So yeah, that was my bit. Trust. How does that be created?
Great. That is, as people are reflecting, I think that's a really key question, and hopefully some of the things we're about to talk about might give you some ideas. But what I'm going to ask quickly before Verona shares, did that reflect in any of the other groups? Did anyone else come up against that same, how do you create connection on that level?
So there are a couple of people who said they're happy to share in the chat. Have you seen that, Mo?
Yes, I have. Okay. Well, if you do have any ideas, I think this is our chance to kind of like pop things out there. So any ideas, pop in the chat. Okay, Brona, I think. Am I saying that correctly?
You are indeed. Well done.
Oh, good. No worries. Well, I think I've seen the name before. Hi, Brona. Please take the floor.
With Andrea and Joanne, and we had a good chat about intergenerational work and how would be the best way to use technology really to break down those barriers between the older generation and the younger generation and kind of get them talking. We also chatted about, you know, how do you break down those barriers for people that maybe, you know, are dyslexic or have any sort of learning disabilities on any level, and what's the best way to do that, you know, where somebody hasn't used them before or hasn't used Teams. All of the training is electronic, it's all online. So how can they actually, you know, actually learn how to use it in the light of COVID-19 and lockdown?
Wow, that is, yes, again, another really, key question. Seeing some resources coming up in the chat. I wonder if that kind of links, did you talk about the offline kind of pairing with that? Did you guys have any ideas around how you could blend offline and online for those groups?
We did indeed. A big lunch was mentioned, you'll be delighted to hear.
Hooray!
The fact a lot of big lunches weren't able to go ahead as they normally would have in previous years. But, you know, some groups are still getting together on a smaller scale to do the socially distanced get-togethers. So that was talked about as well. Joanne had mentioned that. You know, there's even talk about her wee cul-de-sac where she lives. The neighbours putting a trestle table up and inviting all the neighbours along to kind of break down some of those intergenerational barriers with the older people and younger people and families and so on in the area as well.
Great. I'm just seeing in the chat that someone said Joe Munton is using puppets to connect. That sounds amazing. I think everybody loves puppets, right? Joe, would you feel comfortable? Someone else has nominated you, mind. So if you felt comfortable telling us about the puppets, that would be a nice way to finish up. But I appreciate that that wasn't you that shared that.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah, well, I've been using them anyway. That's what I do. And I found, obviously, I mean, I learned puppets strangely in a Tibetan monastery where they were using them to get over trauma. And they're really, I mean, there's loads of stuff. There's some brilliant people doing great stuff out there, trauma work with puppets. But I use them simply. And to be fair, I've always found, even before this, everybody, adults, you know, after a bit of rapport building and confidence raising, you put a puppet on their hand and they will say things that they would not say normally. They will reveal things and share things, and or even there was one time we were doing a bilingual project with Welsh learners, and I said, and the boy was very shy about his Welsh, and I said, "Don't worry, your puppet speaks perfect Welsh." And he was like, "Oh, okay." There's something to the separation that's really good, but obviously in this online world at the moment, it gets away from all of those consent forms and things like that, because it's a puppet that's being seen, your face is not being seen, so it can really enables people to share and express without their faces having to be there. And also, that whole drama thing is brilliant, but it's for a certain kind of person who feels like they can do all that, blah, blah, blah. But also puppets obviously really appeal to the more shy or reticent members of our groups, because there's something about putting a puppet on your hand. It's just silly, it's a bit playful, and it just releases something. There's some kind of magic that works there. So I really would suggest having a little play around with it, because it's very simple.
Yeah, if you have any links, Joe, it would be lovely to see. And what a lovely note to end on. It actually blends into what I'm about to share with you very well. So seeing a lot of stuff coming up on the chat, which is really great. And Joe, if you have any links to your work, I'm sure everyone would love to see. And I think I can echo that, saying it can feel very formal online. And I know we started this little bit of feedback talking about professionals, but sometimes even as professionals, we need to be silly. So if you could save the chat, Katie, I'm about to share just how silly I can be, because there's a little bit of silliness coming on. So I'm also talking about the next bit before I hand back to Katie. And we wanted, after kind of prompting you guys to get your brains going, to actually share some examples of what we've been doing. And I have some videos to share with you about the how-tos, the sort of nitty-gritty of what we've learned. And I'm going to share some videos with you. The first one is one I made for the Eden Project Communities team. You'll see my hair looks a bit different. It was at the beginning of lockdown. So it's very self-explanatory, but you'll see I'm talking to the team. I didn't make it for this. This is something we did as a whole team, just about recording video. So this next bit's a bit more about your actual, the what is it content. So I'm just going to go ahead. I think it's very self-explanatory. Hopefully it's, it will be self-explanatory. Can you see that? Katie, can you give me a thumbs up? And if I start playing it, you'll have to let me know if you can hear it also. Oh, it doesn't.
Hi, everybody.
Yep. Hi, everybody. Okay, here we go.
So Lindsay asked me to share some tips about filming. And I know that filming can be really stressful and uncomfortable and difficult and embarrassing. And I don't really mind it so much. Even though when I watch things back for myself, I'm absolutely mortified, but I think that's maybe it's just getting used to it rather than actually being pleased with what you do, but hey ho. So I've got a few tips. These are some things that came from some training that the Scotland team did in January with PR agency, I think it was, but it's also some things I've just found out myself that I find that work for me. So I guess my main piece of advice is just to practice and just try stuff and see what works. I have a few things that have definitely made it easier though. So my first one would be alone. Don't have other people in the room with you. It's embarrassing. It's so embarrassing talking to yourself. It's embarrassing having the camera there and trying to remember stuff, and you will need to take lots of takes, and actually just being alone makes it a lot easier. Also have something to drink with you. It's really difficult doing filming if you're coughing and you can't find stuff. Having it kind of all set up is really helpful. Editing is your friend. So if you're not doing it live, then you can cut out all of the weird stuff where you maybe don't remember something, or you sneeze, or you cough, or you touch your face too much, and we're not supposed to be touching our faces. So just remember, you can always edit things afterwards. And if you are filming things live, people are a lot more forgiving of your mistakes, knowing that you're there in the moment doing it, or watching it back knowing that you did do it all in one take. So talking of all in one take, I just usually keep things rolling. I take about 10 seconds probably at the beginning of any video, where I usually do a couple of double takes when I start, and it takes me a while to kind of get going, or just some time at the beginning, so that your first few moments of the video aren't your hand retracting back, or it's difficult to cut in if you're not just kind of naturally smiling. So in the call yesterday, Stevie said, please don't send things portrait. And I do know that, and I don't know why I sent mine portrait. I think it's because when you do Facebook Live, it wants you to do it portrait, or I've had a real trouble with it turning the camera around. Anyway, that's not important. What important is, yes, it's much better to have things landscape. It's also really good to have your camera kind of eye level. No one enjoys this bit of their body. Show me someone who has a really nice this bit. It's better to be more sort of eye level, and don't hold the camera with your arm. It's always going to be a bit shaky. Even if you're outside, it's better to have it up on something. And yeah, trying to keep it eye level is really important. And the other thing, which I'm doing a lot in this video for some reason, is don't just stare at your face. It makes it very obvious if you're looking at the screen. It's better to look around, you know, be a bit more natural. Movement is kind of fine. The PR person told me if you're gesturing with your hand too much, hold a pen or something and like keep it out of sight, something to kind of anchor your hand down the way so that it's not doing what mine do, which are kind of like creep up into the frame. And I think it kind of does take you out of it a little bit if you end up staring at your face, which is really natural to do. I cannot help it. It's moving, it's me, it's like a mirror. I'm like a parrot with a shiny object. I can't help it. But it is more genuine to look directly into the camera. You can always turn your device around, but I've found that the immediacy of being able to touch the screen and start and stop and start and stop makes me relax into it and makes it not so like important that I get it right in one take. Just little things that I found work for me. And really, I think trying to act as naturally as possible, or what is natural to you. So for me, that's being a bit goofy and a bit sort of, I move my head around a lot and I kind of shuffle and shake and move things and pick things up and I touch my hair, I can't help it. But actually making it feel more like a video call, that you're phoning somebody, maybe if it needs to be more formal within the team, or if it can be a little bit more informal with us C&Ds, it's maybe like you're sending a video message to a friend and you're trying to be yourself. I think practice makes perfect. A few things are going to help and not help. No one, I mean, some people really love it, but I must say I don't love it. But I know some people find it a lot more stressful than others. So if you're really finding that you just can't bear it, make sure you contact another member of the team, and then you can always record a call, or there are lots of ways around it, so that it's not a huge stress, because Eden Project Communities, the whole point is that we're just being ourselves, and we want to get that across and out into the world. So it shouldn't be something that we all look a bit terrified in, because I think that would probably give off the wrong vibes. Okay, take 2, take 3, take 3, and really it's a no. Thought what I would do is film it, because this is about why filming is easy. No, blah. I don't know, these are just the things that work for me. Well, I'll hand back over to Live Mo.
All right, so handing back over to Live Mo. So those are some tips. If you're thinking about filming and sending things out, this could be, and so one of the things I would really share with you guys is that we see a lot of posts on social media and we read a lot of text. What is amazing about community work, and what I love about community work, is that it is about my passion for people. It's about how much I love working and seeing the variety of things that we all do. And I think if you can find a way to get that out there, the best way now, I think, is to get more comfortable with filming. If you can, interactive is amazing, but as we've talked about today, it's not always possible. And sometimes people need a way in. They need to maybe see you before they come on a Zoom call and speak to you. They need that sense that you're a real person that they can connect with, and also that you make silly bloopers. And actually, I mean, I have hours of bloopers. The bloopers was like, that was like the highlights. So I also have now just another couple of quick videos to share with you. So that one was really about pre-recorded material, and I would encourage you all to find ways to include videos in what you do if you can. Think about the things that I said. But I've also been doing a series of Facebook Lives. Somehow it's been happening and it's been great. So if you're in Scotland, I really encourage you to join us in the Eden Project Community Scotland page, because that's where I tend to go live and do all sorts of things. And so this is a little bit more, I've been doing more talks, how to use workshops, creative things. So this next video is more about what I have learned when I go live. So I talked about that a little bit in there, but I hadn't done that much live stuff. So this is where I use Facebook Live to be there in the moment. And the next two videos are about the things that we're going to be going, where you think actually pre-recorded is a lot of work, editing is a lot of work. It's not ever going to look the way you want it to do. So I would really encourage you to think about live videos as a really good option. And here are some excerpt and some specific tips that I've got about doing it live, except speaking of doing it live, I've now clicked on all the wrong things. All right, here we go. Here we are, and share the sound. Can everybody see that? Can I get a thumbs up from Katie? All right, guys, this is only 3 minutes, so great.
Hi everybody, good morning / lunchtime, afternoon. Stop moving camera. Good afternoon / lunchtime / 1 o'clock on Monday. It's June. Oh my goodness, I can't believe it. How did we get all the way through to June? Hi. Okay, I'm just going to wait a couple of seconds. We're going live a couple of minutes from now. I'm going to be starting off the beeswax food wrap tutorial. But thinking about looking after ourselves in this time and trying to be mindful, I think having a reason to do things feels really important right now. So especially if it's day, however many days we are in now, and you're thinking, I just can't motivate myself. Having something like making a flag that you know is going to have a purpose. It's not just a piece of craft. It's like, oh no, I'm going to put this in my window. And knowing that you're part of something larger, like a lot of people are putting things up in their windows. It's creating our public space in the way that we want people to see our communities. So I hope it's been useful. My biggest piece of advice is use what you have around your house. Have a good dig through those old cupboards, have a look at the old fabric, look at things and think, would a charity shop really want this, or could it be turned into something lovely? Pellets is so much easier. It's just ready to go. They're already in the size that you need them to be. They melt super quick. They're like processed. But I was thinking, like, why use beeswax? And if you are a strict vegan, you can use soy wax. If you think about, like, those are both edible kinds of wax. You can't use just any old wax. Don't use a candle. Think about the quality, especially if it's touching your food. Think about it being like really nice. And I was thinking a little bit, yeah, like why beeswax? But actually now, in a time where we know that the bees are kind of under threat, there's a beekeeping association for the whole of Britain, and then locally people will often have beekeepers associations. And if you can support your local beekeepers who are actively looking after their apiaries, their hives of bees, by buying their wax, that is the best quality wax you're going to be able to get. Hi everyone, I hope you're enjoying the beautiful sunshine we are experiencing in Scotland at the moment. I'm here to tell you that Mondays with Mo is back this coming Monday, and it's our run-up week to the big virtual lunches happening on the 6th and 7th of June. I have a really special and fun session this coming Monday, and I'm really excited to share that we will be making our own little land of big lunches. To find out more, you'll just have to come along this coming Monday at 1 p.m, and I hope to see you there. Have a great weekend.
Okay, so hopefully you can see there that some of those were live and they're just excerpts. All of those are on our Facebook, Eden Project Community's Facebook page. And then there's the little excerpt at the end where I did an advert, and you can hear the difference in my voice that I'm reading from a script that I've tried to remember, and that I struggle with some of the words, and it feels just, I mean, it's, you know, it's still grand, it's still good, and I think people really appreciate we're all trying to do these things. But just thinking actually something about the live nature of it takes out that stress. I think that our Facebook Lives, and I'm seeing that someone else has posted that their live videos have been successful, I think it's a really amazing way of connecting, and I would say it feels, again, very daunting. When I first started doing it, it was nerve-wracking. But the more I do things like Zoom calls and the more that I found my passion within it, like the things that I was really, really great at, or like the things I really enjoyed sharing, the easier it became. So just one last thing. I know it's been a lot of me talking and a lot of videos of me. This last one, I promise, is the next thing that's coming up for us, and something I'm really, really excited to share. So one thing I've talked about is that we're having project tours in our open sessions, and that's where we're encouraging people to use the magic of the internet to share those tours out, you know, take us around the projects. The other thing is I'm really keen on doing is creating this platform for you guys to share what you've, you know, do what we're doing today, but do it live. So have interviews with people live, and I'm going to be starting a session of that across Scotland. So if you're in Scotland right now and you want to talk to the rest of Scotland about what you're doing, please get in touch. I'm really excited about it. But then how do you do that if you have Facebook Live? How do you bring another person in? What is the easiest way of doing that? And this is something it took me quite a long time to actually get the head around, the software and Facebook Live with, and the software that's already available through Facebook is quite difficult, I found, and doesn't work unless you're on a phone. But what happens if you don't want to be on a phone? And this is the simplest method. So this is the last video and the last bit of me rambling on, I promise. And then we'll have just a little bit of time, I think, and hand over to Katie. So last bit, and I can happily send these round if anyone thinks they'd be particularly useful. So here we go. I've made it too big again. Right, share screen, last share screen. Can I get a thumbs up from Katie? Yes, good. I'm using a proxy application at the moment, and it's called StreamYard, and we're just testing it out. So I can see our first guest is here, ready to be asked the all-important questions. So I'm going to make sure that they're ready to come in, and I will be adding them to the stream. Here we go. Hello, so we're here live with Katie. So Katie, how are you today?
I'm really well, thank you, Mo. I'm really pleased to be here.
Really great. So we've got some of the important issues of the day here, and I'm just going to be a quick fire round. I'm going to ask you the first question. So we all know that cakes are intrinsic and important to society, but do you think it's true that cakes, Jaffa cakes, are cakes or biscuits? Issues of the day, what's your take?
This is a crucial question. I'm glad you've asked it. I think there is a scientific answer, but science isn't everything. I think go with the flow. Cake or biscuit, you choose.
Great. Top-notch stuff there. Okay, well, thanks so much. I can see that we're going to have another person with another important question of the day here. So have a great day. Thanks for your input, and we will see you soon. Bye. So that was Katie there with the important news of the day on whether Jaffa cakes are cakes and biscuits. Really, again, I think it's a tough one. But as she said, it's probably up to you whether you prefer it cake or biscuit. Okay. So we can see our next guest is ready to join us, so we'll see if they're ready and if we're ready to take them in. Okay. Hi.
Hello. Hello.
Hello. It's so good to see you. So we've had some important questions today, but I want to ask you one that's on all of our minds. It's supposedly summer right now, but can you tell me your stance on the weather?
My stance on the weather is, that's a tricky question. My stance on the weather is it keeps the world growing, and I'm happy with that.
Okay, good, controversial, but good. Okay, well, thank you for your time, Katie. I think we've probably got another person on the line there, but it's been good to speak to you. Have a great day. Okay, important questions there. I have to say my opinion on the weather is it could be sunnier. Definitely today, the last few days, could be sunnier. Okay, we've got our final person here. The last and important questions of the day. Okay, we'll just see if they're ready to join us. Hello, Katie. It's great to see you. We've had some really important questions come up today, but I think we're leaving on a real stonker, the one that's on everyone's minds. In your opinion, why is soup hot?
Soup?
Why is it hot?
It's not always hot, is it? Gazpacho.
That's true. Do you get other flavours of gazpacho apart from tomato?
I know. I think soup's hot because it's the the heartiest, most comforting food you can have, and that just warms your insides.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you so much for joining us today, Katie. It's been great to hear why soup is hot, and we will hopefully speak to you again soon. All right then, some important issues and a great way to show you how StreamYard works. Hopefully you'll be seeing me online more with more sensible questions, probably more about communities and the communities that are making great things happen across Scotland. But for now, from me, Mo, and Craig Miller for Eden Project Communities, it's been lovely to speak to you all, and I will see you soon. Bye. All right, so last of that. So I think the thing that I would really like to share with you guys about that is that it's very, very simple. So all of the things I've heard about that people are a little bit concerned about the technology, that use of this is called StreamYard, and I'm happy to share the information that I found out about it. It was a community member in Wales that shared it with us. Having that kind of chat interaction, which is very low-key, light touch, allows people to feel connected to you, maybe without them actually having to use the technology. You can have that very conversational style, but especially when we have conversations with maybe somebody who people want to hear from in your community, or they just want to hear an update, but you want to have a bit more, because it is daunting. Obviously, I love a blether, so I can talk for hours, but not everybody does that. And you might want to have a bit more natural. There's something we really enjoy as humans, watching other people speak to each other about things. And I think the more relevant you make that to your community, the more people will tune in to hear what you have to say. And not all connection with people needs to be a Zoom call. I think that's something to really take away from this. So I'm going to hand back over to Katie, and we can stop watching me now, I think.
Thanks, Mo, that was fabulous.
And can we just shout out to Katie's amazing hat changes there? Really top-notch stuff.
Thank you. I'm still feeling a bit discombobulated now. I'm getting on the screen like that. I wasn't quite ready for it. And I just have to give, in return, give a shout out for Mo's haircuts and hairstyles, because I loved seeing the fringe growing and shortening over those videos in lockdown. That was fabulous. So we've just got about just over 10 minutes left. I hope you can stick with us for the last wee bit. A lot of it is just going to be reiterating some of the things that Mo has said, particularly about communication and body language. And there's a few things that I was going to share with you. As I said, you'll have heard, if you've heard these before, which you probably will have come across these before, just really useful, I think, at this stage in the game to be reminded of things. We'll have slipped into habits and behaviours that have become more comfortable to us, and perhaps now's the time to shake that up a little bit and be reminded. So let me find here we go. There we go. So a few wee thoughts here, but I'll come on to those in a second. So this definitely isn't a how to come across like a professional on Zoom. It's not about conformity. I'm not going to tell you that you have to have, clear backgrounds and make sure you've got the lighting in the right place, although these things definitely help. But I think what we're all here for is about celebrating our communities and what we do in our communities. And for that, I feel the most important things are embracing who we are ourselves and reflecting our community, looking at our different approaches, celebrating those, and our different styles digitally as well. And I think that was really nice, just seeing Mo doing the different styles even in those videos for different audiences. So that's not what I really wanted to talk about, but I do want to still share a little bit about my learnings and our learning as a team, about how communication can really help, and how body language in particular can help you relax if you're nervous about being on a digital platform, whether that's live or pre-recorded. And there are things that I'll mention here that I'm not doing, so I need to keep remembering and practicing. But again, it's about finding your own style and what you're comfortable with, and being able to recognise the feedback from the rest of the group when that comes in. So after all, generally you're going to be the host, and you're going to be setting the scene for whatever it is that you're hosting, whatever space it is that you really want to create. So I've put a few thoughts up here. I have just said it's not about conformity and backgrounds, but just keep, when you're hosting, just keep an eye on your background. It's okay for people to see what's behind you. A lot of us are working in bedrooms, kitchens. One of my friends has to work in a cupboard. That's the only space they've got where she can do private calls in her house. So that's just how it is. But just remember, people are then in your house and seeing what's there. Also, talking about sort of setting that scene, think about your housekeeping when you start a call. We quite often have a list of things that we share with people to recommend that, for example, at the beginning about keeping on mute. But also, one other thing I like to share with people is saying that it's great for us to have some non-verbal feedback while we're hosting, which makes a big difference to me, actually. So just, I can see a couple of people nodding, or if I see a thumbs up every now and again, and of course the waving, the Zoom wave, which we all tend to do now, and are all a bit nervous that we're going to eventually come out face-to-face meetings and start doing that. Okay, don't need to do that anymore, we're not on Zoom. So there's all these sorts of things, but I really like seeing that. I really like that level of interaction. So make sure you're physically comfortable where you are. Mo talked a little about keeping where you keep your eye level and adjusted. And also, Joe stole my idea, or I stole Joe's idea about having googly eyes next to your camera, because I've done that as well. So just one googly eye each side of the camera reminds you that actually when you're tempted to look at, so I'm looking directly at the camera now, I don't know if anyone can see me large enough, but it does feel a little bit different than when I look down at participants. So if I sit back and I come to look straight at the camera, it's quite different to when I tend to lean in and look at people on the screen. It's just little ideas to test out. Next time you're on a call with just one or two people, give it a go and see what feels comfortable. Critique each other and share how you feel. Non-verbal communication is really tricky to spot on Zoom. At the moment, for example, I'm sharing my screen. I can only see 4 people, and they're about that big. So I'm not going to catch those cues, and you don't then get that immediate feedback. So there may be some awkwardness and there may be some silence. That's okay, just embrace that. And in fact, we quite often just leave some space for people to jump in if we're asking for any sort of feedback or opinions from people. And sometimes that does feel a bit odd. So you can just say to people, I'm going to leave a little bit of space now. I feel, that whoever wants to speak will be able to speak in that space. So feel comfortable with that silence and using that as well. Yeah, active listening. Everybody here will be well aware of what a difference that's making at the moment. So just do your research on that. Think about how much you need to be listening and responding for non-verbal cues as well. And finally, I was just going to say, enjoy it. Really, really enjoy it. It's your way of connecting. It's your community. It's potentially a group that you've worked with before in a very, very different way, but find different ways to engage with your groups. One of the things we'll share at the end of the call and in the follow-up email is some of the work that the rest of the team have done on bringing playfulness to your digital experiences as well. So play and playfulness. So we'll share that with you. That is great fun. Loads of activities that are appropriate for different types of groups, different ages, different abilities. So have a look at those and think about whether you want to include some of that in your, there as well, if you want to include that in your session as well. It's great fun. It is a bit daunting. We saw that in the polls at the beginning. People still feel a bit nervous about it. But when you're hosting, there's a certain responsibility. I'm just going to share something else with you. Bear with me. Share a different screen. I don't know if anyone's seen this one before. The diagram of a Zoom meeting attention span. And I just want you to have just take 10 seconds to look at that, if you can see the size of it. I'll send it round with the feedback as well. So this was done by somebody in America who it went viral. It's great fun. And you can look at those. And I love the fact that Mo mentioned in her video about this bit here. Because on the pie chart, has my neck always looked like that? 13% of people. I love that. So this is what you're competing with. People are going to be distracted. Your people that you're presenting to are going to be distracted, but that's okay. That's just how it is. But if you keep it fresh, keep that energy up, you've got a much better chance of sharing your message with them and keeping them fully engaged. So that's really the main bits that I was going to share. I've got a few minutes left, so I was also going to just say a little bit about using your hands as well, because that came up in Mo's videos. I think we're now very used to seeing people from here upwards. And when we did a course recently about filming for TV and media, we were very clearly told to keep our hands out of the picture, and that's where Mo's tip with the pen comes. So if you've got to keep your hands out, you maybe need to hold on to something. But actually, one of the things I've been trying to do lately is just perhaps move back a little bit from my screen and just use my hands a little bit more. So it's just something I've been experimenting with. So it's something worth trying as well. If you're more naturally that sort of person, a bit more exuberant with your hands, try it. If it feels more natural, if not, just come back in. So that's just a little thing for you all to try in front of the mirror next time you're planning a call. And finally, just to sum up, I'll reiterate the last point on my slide, which was enjoy yourselves. If you enjoy yourselves, your positivity and your enthusiasm for what you'll do will shine through the screen, and it will reach people and inspire them to be involved as well. And having seen some of the projects you're involved in and hearing your stories, there's some fantastic work going on out there. So I'm just going to give a last big thumbs up to all the amazing work that you're doing across the UK at the moment. So thanks everyone. That's literally just the last couple of minutes. Say a big thank you to everyone for coming along. It's been really, really nice to have a chance to chat to you all today. Thanks to Mo for supporting the call and doing some excellent filming. We love that. There'll be more of that. And Neve for your tech support as well. That's great. It all went really smoothly. That's amazing. And like I said, go back, enjoy yourselves. There's going to be a link in the chat box for a post-event survey. If you wouldn't mind filling that in, there's space there to tell us what you like, what you think we can do better, and any other events that you'd like us to put on around these sorts of topics. And we absolutely do act on that. This has come out of a discussion that we had on one of the feedback forms. So we really do read those and we really do act on them. We want to be putting on events that we know are useful to you. And as I said, I'll save the recording, edit that and send it round to everybody along with the presentations. And if we've got links to the videos, Mo, we can send those as well. And you should receive that from me in the next couple of days. So that means it's lunchtime, late lunchtime. Take care, everyone, and thanks for coming along.
Thank you so much, everybody. Hope to see you online again soon.